Sending your child to nursery is the first milestone in their education. For some children, it can be an exciting journey, the prospect of which leaves them totally unfazed. For others, it can be really daunting, nerve-wracking. It's essential to investigate the options fully and to choose the right path for your child. So what to look for when choosing a nursery or a preschool? As this can be the most personal and important decision in the first step of a child's education, always start with a visit. You will see the nursery in action and how much the children are actually enjoying themselves. Happy, thriving children in the environment is essential, and a nursery achieves this by knowing their children and what they love and what makes them tick. An exciting early years curriculum will combine plenty of play with getting messy as well as learning. So don't send your children to nursery in their best party outfit. For parents, being in tune with the ethos of the nursery is also a key factor to consider. A great nursery supports the whole family, not just the children who attend the nursery. The nursery experience shouldn't just be about your child attending their set nursery sessions. Families should feel like part of a community and have a support network. This can be achieved by the organisation of regular coffee mornings and evening sessions for parents. Find out what's in place for parents at the nursery you're interested in. But most importantly, if your child is in a nurturing, safe, happy and fun setting that feels like home, they will flourish and your mind will be put at ease. The early years grant. The burden of nursery fees is slightly eased by the early years entitlement, which kicks in the term after your child turns 3 until they start in reception. This means that every 3 to 4-year-old child who's being educated with an approved childcare provider can receive 15 hours of free educational childcare, regardless of parents' income. If your child is attending a private nursery or preschool, this set amount will be deducted from the school's termly fees. In addition, parents who are both working can claim up to 30 hours of childcare if they meet certain criteria. Okay, so you're settled on the right nursery or preschool for your child. What about the right school? Are you going to opt for a single sex from the off or co-ed at this early stage? A large school with fantastic facilities or a smaller and more nurturing one? Remember to look at the leavers destinations. Are leavers headed to the sorts of schools that fit in with your longer-term schooling plan? All independent schools are fortunate enough to be able to choose a curriculum based on areas and subjects that inspire and engage their students on a daily basis. They can be tailored to individual needs with a clear focus on what students find important and interesting. All schools offer a large range of additional and extracurricular activities, from Latin and Mandarin to mindfulness and living history to horse riding, skiing and judo, alongside core subjects like maths and English. London schools are also able to make use of incredible resources on their doorstep, hosting regular lessons in museums, galleries and theatres. Getting into school can seem like a lengthy and frustrating process. However, if you have your sights set on a non-selective school and your child doesn't get a place at the time of initial offers, do sit tight and stay in contact with the school. A lot can change in the year between offers being made and the time school starts, particularly in a transient city like London, where families may relocate or in the end decide to decline a place, which will free up one for someone else. When choosing a school, visiting in person can be a powerful tool that can alter your opinions from sources such as league tables or school websites. You might be impressed by the grounds and facilities, but try to stay focused on what's important for the development of your child. Don't discount first impressions or the feel you get initially for a school. Try visiting on a normal day rather than an open day when the school isn't so formally on show, to gain a truer view of life and observe how staff and children interact. To get a feel for the types of families that attend a particular pre-prep or prep school, you could think about observing a school pickup. From what you see, are these the types of families that you and your family would fit alongside? Also, keep in mind that a long school commute might not be ideal for a tired 4-year-old. Plus, choosing a school close to where you live can only make the option of play dates much more manageable. On a school visit, speak to teachers, pupils and the head teacher to get a more rounded view of the school. Ideally, visit and compare several schools, then carefully consider all the different aspects that matter to you: academic, social, sporting, ethos, location, before making up your mind. Academic rigour and excellence is paramount to any good school, but fully understand a school's aims and vision and find out how your child will be stretched and challenged to ensure your child is being encouraged to excel in all that they do. Every child's learning journey should be personalised, and high-performance learning should be an integral feature for every pupil, not just the most academically gifted. Finally, remember the best school is always the school that best suits your child, where they will feel comfortable and motivated and ultimately will thrive. I hope that I've made things a little clearer when it comes to making the all-important decisions about starting your child off on their educational journey. And I'll now hand over to my fellow speaker, Kay, to talk a bit more about nurseries.
Nursery education is your child's first rung on the education ladder, and it sometimes gets forgotten in the planning. As it forms the foundation on which their entire education will be built, it is very important. Starting school is the beginning of a big new adventure, though baby spare a thought for the little girl who arrived on her second day at school and turned accusingly to her mother and said, "But I've been to school." As most nursery schools are not very big, it is advisable to register your child early, ideally from birth, if you want to be top of the waiting list. You can often print off a registration form from the school's website, but I would strongly recommend that this is followed up as soon as possible with a visit. Most nursery schools accept children from around 2 years old, and they will then move on to their next school in the September following their 4th birthday. You need to remember that if your child's birthday is in August, then they'll always be very young for their academic year, and if their birthday is in September, they'll be very old. As a country, we're extremely unusual in starting school so young, and unfortunately, although there's currently a lot of discussion about these summer babies, having the option to hold back a year, at present, about these summer babies having the option to be held back a year, at present, very few pre-prep or primary schools are willing to allow you to do this. Some nursery schools, like prep schools, will have a September-only intake, but some will have a September and January intake, and a few, like us, have a termly intake. This is an important factor when you register, as at this young age, just a few months can make a huge difference in their development, hence us having an intake in September and January and April. It's also worth looking at the way in which your child will be introduced to school. It's a big step to be left on your own for the first time and needs to be sympathetically and carefully handled. We find it works well to start the 2-year-olds in a smaller group with fewer sessions a week. Then when they turn 3, they progress to a larger group with 5 sessions a week in the morning. And then in their last academic year, they have the option of bringing a packed lunch, staying for a few days until 3 o'clock. So in this way, they're gradually being introduced to what it will be like when they move on to their next school. Preparation is what it's all about. These are some ideas of what to look for when you visit a nursery school. Are the children happily and constructively engaged? Someone once commented that Young England was like organised chaos, but actually I think that's rather a good description of what to look for. It shouldn't be silent and regimented. Are the staff working well as a team? What are their qualifications? And how long do they generally remain at the school? What is the teacher-to-child ratio? Legally, it's 1:4 under 3 years and 1:8 over 3 years. Is there adequate and easily accessible outdoor space? Is there a good mixture of traditional and contemporary equipment, from climbing frames and construction kits to computers and interactive whiteboards? Is there a varied curriculum, including outings, music, drama, maybe peripatetic teachers to introduce things like languages, football, tennis? And what are the schools that the nursery feeds onto? When you visit a nursery school, you may well want to discuss the next step in your child's education. At this early stage, we obviously don't know what school will suit your child, so I would always suggest that the parents register at a variety of different pre-prep or prep schools, taking into consideration size, a big school and a smaller school, maybe a single-sex school and a co-education school, as well as obviously considering the location. And that is important. You don't want to be sitting in a car all day. Your child will start at their next school the September after they turned 4. As I said, nearly all prep schools now have some form of assessment before they offer a place. The boys and the co-educational schools around here generally assess in October, November, offering places for the following September, and the girls' schools in January and February. Every school has a slightly different way of assessing. Some schools ask for a written report from the nursery, some don't. Some schools invite the parents to stay with the child, some don't. The child may be asked to spend a whole morning at the school or just a short time being observed as part of a group, or sometimes just an individual chat with the child. Basically, every school is looking for children that will suit their particular environment, but the varied process does make it appear very complicated. They are not, as Susan said, expecting your child to be reading, writing, and doing long division age 3. They're looking for children that enjoy learning, retain knowledge, show signs of being confident and independent, and can carry out instruction. When you hear back from the schools, then you may want to discuss your options again. At this point, please don't turn to your child and say, "Which school would you like to go to, darling?" Because their decision will probably be based on what was for lunch that day or the colour of the uniform. If you're considering privately educating your child, then it is quite possibly one of the biggest investments that you'll make, and it's also one of the greatest gifts that you can give your child. Education is so important right from the start, so do book early to avoid disappointment. And remember, school starts only a couple of years after your child is born.